2 videos.
Great.
Go ahead.
Also on page 1, item number 9, has the authority's mission statement been revised and adopted during the reporting period? And the written answer is no. And Al, I think what have we typically answered? Because we adopt it every year, but we don't revise it every year.
Right.
So it's not a great question.
Right, a lot of their questions are, tricky
Mm-hmm.
to do something that you have to do something.
Yep.
We've only ever answered yes the years we actually made
Okay.
revisions.
So this year, we would answer
Right.
yes. Yeah.
2023.
I don't have any questions on page 2, and then beginning on page 3, where the list of the board of directors, the term expiration date is listed as pleasure of authority. In fact, it's pleasure of the town board.
But that's the authority that I think that's maybe right.
Is that correct?
Authority is in there, it doesn't mean our authority.
Okay,
But, yeah, because I had that same.
Yeah, I mean, any of those could be replaced tomorrow.
Well, that's it.
They've decided, even the legislature.
The town board has the power to appoint and to disappoint.
Yeah, we serve supervisor's pleasure.
all right, thank you for clarifying. And under, for Victor, and this is a question for you and Kate. So the question, does the board member / designee also hold an elected or appointed state government position? The written answer is no. Do you both agree that that's correct?
You're not appointed, I don't think.
All right then.
I think that's to you're appointed to a commission or something,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
What part of the thing, these parish reports are all along. This is a nice sized little IPA. There are public power authorities downstate that are.
Sure, yeah.
Hundreds of employees. Yeah. So it's one size fits all. It doesn't necessarily.
Would my answer then be yes, though? Because I'm appointed by the governor.
Yeah,
Board.
yeah, because when I
Yeah.
was on the commission, I had to do the same thing.
So in 2023, that answer would be yes for me, because I recently got appointed to the oversight franchise board by the speaker confirmation.
Okay, yeah, so then this year that would change,
Right.
but
So
Georgette,
2022,
yeah.
I'm good. It's
Okay.
next year.
Georgette,
So
you're a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So does the board member hold the elected appointed that be yes? Okay.
And the last question that I had is page 7, staff listing. We have Al, and it's all zeros. Is that because it's a contract?
That because this is the old go around, and I've had, I chase this with we report it to the procurements. The
Mhm.
procurement report, which is a separate, and actually, I think, this will tweak too. I'm gonna have Kate as the on this. Even though she reported as a procurement, I'm gonna report her around because the agency does pay her directly. So that's a change I gotta make.
And that was the end of my questions. Thank you for your patience and your time explaining. Other questions, discussion about the Paris report?
I should just have one comment on how I can follow up with you on this. I'm looking at the governance information, and we should just update the URLs.
Right.
There, they should redirect. I set that up, but we should replace them.
Right, but what happened is when I filled this out a while ago.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Before-
No worries. Yeah.
Before I leave, or before this thing actually is submitted, we have till next Friday, I'll spend a while just going through, making sure we got to upload certain documents, like we're going to make an edit to the operations and accomplishments. So when that edit is done, I will take that and delete the one that's in there now. Because actually, when I first started doing this, I put almost placeholder documents in there, just so, because you can't,
Go forward.
you have to answer everything.
Yeah, right,
everything
right.
Before you go forward. There's no savings. Find that out. Hard.
So I got a question. So on page 8, there's a list of the board members.
Yeah.
So if this is for 2022, granted that, sort of people in this room are partial, for the latter half of 2022, what about the beginning half of 2022?
No,
Is there any need to list out?
it actually, when you take a member off, or someone resigns or leave, whatever, the minute you say they're gone, they're gone. You can't, the way this software has been evolving. What they had initially, 15, 18 years ago, this is way better. It's still not perfect, but it's way better than it was. But once you're deleted, you're gone.
This is effective December 31st.
Right.
It's like 40.
Oh, got it. Okay, so it doesn't
You could be
capture
on the
the
board for
entire
one
year.
day,
It's not that
and
big.
you'd have to be reported, and you could be on the board for 360 days, and be off at the end of the year.
Okay.
You all have the same wonderful benefits.
Just, what's great about being recorded is that all these discussion items go into, there's a record of that, we did our due diligence on the report, and I think it's great.
Plus your chair, who usually certifies for you? Treasurer or the chair? Yeah,
I click the button, I'm the certifier.
you're the certifier, yeah.
But that's only done after the board since.
Right, right.
And what I'll do is before this report is actually filed, I will send out whatever tweaks are made.
Okay.
And everybody has a day or half a day to say, hey, all right, good. As I said, we're a week ahead. A lot of,
That's why this is my A+ IDA. Others not so.
well, the other thing is, I mean, you can wait till March 31st, get ready.
Right,
And then March 31st is an ice storm, and there's a blackout.
correct.
And you can't, nobody has any internet, you can't file, and we're late, so. I don't wait till the very end, but I give it a day or two each.
For our, to the point about members joining late in the year, especially, more coffee, especially Georgette. Some of you had a fairly narrow time frame in which to complete the oath of office. My understanding is that that's all been done. There is the ABO training, which I think is still in process. If anyone has hurdles with that, or believes that they're not able to complete the ABO fiduciary duty training, please let us know, and we will do everything to help facilitate getting that done on time. But right now, especially with a December appointment, we recognize that, in fact, I believe ABO had suspended the training for a period of time. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, so I'm set up for April 19th.
Terrific. Come to Hyde Park.
There you go.
Come to Hyde Park for the EDC IDA Academy on April 11th, held at the Culinary Institute. And you can pick up live fiduciary duty refresher or training. Beautiful, overlooking the Hudson River. Local economic impact for Dutchess County, and great food. And the IDA does pay for members to attend the IDA account. Anything else on the Paris report as amended? I would accept a motion to approve the amended report and authorize Al to make the changes, confirm the URLs with John, and upload it in a timely fashion. All in favor? Any abstaining or opposed? Okay, thank you. We've approved and authorized Al for the completion. Okay. Moving through to the last item of business. Under number 5, the review and approval of the public comment policy. And this comes out of governance committee. It is very similar to the public comment policies by the planning and zoning board, so we're conforming with how other organizations within the town are creating that balance between hearing from the public, but also moving on with the daily business that we conduct.
I just have two questions. First, number one, each meeting will include a designated or may include, we're not necessarily going to have a public comment period at every meeting, right? If we're not, if there are no project applications under review, so.
Okay.
And then on number 5, I would just suggest that the last sentence, the very bottom of the page, the agency board is not required by law to answer any questions from the public. Just strikes me as a little strident. You know? So if we said something like written material questions or comments requiring responses will not be accepted by the agency board consistent with state law or something like that. Or consistent with state law, the public comment period will not be a question and answer period, something like that. And then just strike without requiring to do it. That's a little harsh.
We are requiring anyone who wants to speak to register in advance. So if no one registers in advance, then we don't have any reason to have them.
Right.
I hear what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
It's just, they got to register in advance. So we know that.
Okay.
I hear you. It seems moot, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
But important to that,
Yeah.
it has to be on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, it has
Yeah.
to be on the agenda, then they can register. If they can't register to put something on the agenda, they can contact you, but they can't.
Got it.
But if we say will, every session
Yeah.
will include a public comment period,
Yeah.
then someone can stand up and say, hey, you have to buy your own policy.
Yeah,
Allow me to
you're right,
speak.
because we
And everyone would say, well, it's not on the agenda as well.
We
We
spend
still
a
have
lot
to
of time
hold a
on that
public
issue.
comment period. So,
So the town's policy is you have to register in advance?
No,
You can't come
our
and speak?
policy is
No,
that
I know, but I
Yeah,
thought you
it's
just said
different.
it's consistent
Different
with.
from, it's different from.
Consistent with state law, he said.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they wait, like planning committee waits, or doesn't require
Right.
that.
But they do work to keep the comments solely on the projects on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
They don't,
Correct.
and the place for all residents to speak is at the town board, and you can speak on items not on the agenda at the town board appropriately. That's not something that is appropriate for a board with a specific mission like ours. So that's the chief way we're consistent with.
So do most other, I don't know, like I don't love not being transparent. So is that what most other IDAs require, that you sign up in 3 days in advance before the meeting?
Yes. I've never been one to shy away from giving my opinion, I suppose, but I don't like comment at IDA meetings at all. Mostly because at the end of the day, when you're gonna pass, you're gonna vote a project up or down and give that benefit, that's really all that you're weighing in on. It's already going through planning board, it's gonna happen no matter what, you know what I mean? And when I see these policies in place and also people come to meetings, they don't like the project, you know this.
Right.
So we're not the planning board,
Right.
we're not the town board, so if it is on the agenda and they want, I suppose, very narrowly, if they sent me something and said, we don't think you should give this tax incentive because, or, whatever it is they'd like to speak on, to me, I think that could be important to hear, and you
Right.
probably would want to hear that. But at the end of the day, by the time it makes it onto the agenda, it won't make it on the agenda if it's not looking good, right? If you don't like it, So to me, it's really about how the board feels about public comment and what they want to do. But not legally required, and quite frankly, most of the time turns
The
into
IDA
a
is not
circus.
required to have public
No.
comment?
Now, if we have to hold a public hearing.
Correct,
then-
right. That's,
what-
And I
that's where you,
where the
But I think
public
that's also the same
opportunities.
process, like we
Yeah,
have a
no, that's
72-hour window to
yes.
note it, so, I mean, that's.
Yes.
something.
Yeah, prior to us giving any benefits, we have to hold the public hearing.
Right.
And that's really where the comment is taken. And that is the old school position is, well, you know, we had the public hearing and,
Right.
you know. So. But if you're gonna do it, I wanted to put a policy around it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I'm supportive of the policy as it is, and, we're with the edits.
Right.
I would like us to review our, how we educate the public about our role when going forward, or I'd like us to discuss that as we move forward, consistent with the other discussion we've had today.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Right.
With a vastly more accessible website, we are a good part of the way there. Now, in adopting this public comment policy, while I am not saying that we would accept walk-ins, it is certainly at the discretion of the board if there is a compelling reason to allow someone to speak about an item on the agenda from a perspective that is in fact relevant to the IDA's actions. We could choose to waive the 72-hour pre-registration. It's a guide to the public that we want to know in advance. We can choose to waive it for a compelling reason, and especially as Georgette rightly pointed out, because we generally operate in a very transparent manner.
How would we do that?
We need to vote, right?
Yeah, how would we do that? How could we waive provision without a meeting? I'm just,
Go into executive session, maybe pause, waive it.
that wouldn't
Yeah.
which is why we have an educational component at the end of the meeting.
in the next meeting, I don't know how you do that.
Well,
Well, you could vote to make an amendment to the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can do that.
No.
So-
I thought you were more talking about it, if there's something on the agenda, you know, Project X,
Mhm.
and say, the day before, there's a big article in the Times Union about that project, and someone may decide they want to speak, and the 72-hour window is already closed. I think at that point, they have a legitimate right to speak on the topic, but they didn't meet the 72-hour window. I think we would waive that and let someone.
I'm not
speak.
averse to doing
No.
that. I'm just asking procedurally how we do that.
I'm recommending you not do that.
Okay. I'm just saying, you know, we have a policy, how do we, without a vote?
Because then it's left to discretion and that is a slippery slope.
Okay.
But that's just my, you know, there's nothing,
Well, I'll certainly leave that up to the board. We can, table that and not activate it. One question that I do have
you
is.
certainly can do anything on motion at any time.
Right.
Right, at any time.
So one thing that your point brought up, Dave, is, if there is an article in the Times Union a day or so before a meeting, we should make sure that we aren't violating our policies by inviting, say, the project owner to come speak to us on 24 hours notice. Is there anything in this policy that would prohibit us from inviting someone to provide information to us?
An applicant would not fall under this policy, number one. Number two, there's new guidance out from the ABO that at a minimum, because what happens, as you know, sometimes there's late walk-on agenda items. The ABO has put out some guidance that they want 24 to 48 hours notice of any, documents, things we're going to be looking at. So I would say at that point, if we're beyond that window for an applicant, yeah, or a special meeting or something like that.
Okay.
And we could have on the agenda, we've done in the past, budget reports. And that's a generic, so we could have a project report, I would expect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is going to go to the policy that governance is looking at for the timeline of review of the application and the projects. So once we have that timeline in place, we would know as a board, well, you know, we're in month 3, we've completed the review, this should go on next month. Whether the project applicant comes or not is a different, the public comment policy is meant specifically for the public, not an applicant per se.
But I think we also might be violating our policy if something happened 24 hours in advance of the meeting and we decided we wanted to hear from the project applicant. I mean, the board will not have advance notice. We will not have circulated, you know, agenda material. And so I don't think it'd be appropriate for us to then meet with that person, that team, the next day without giving the board sufficient time, in the week to 10 days we now have to review project materials related to that project. So I would suggest that's, again, an item for the following month's meeting or a special meeting or something else, but we don't try and cram it into the next day's agenda.
I think the ABO's recent guidance on that 24 to 48 is because the public notice requirement of the agenda itself is 72 hours. So a lot of boards will just post the agenda, but like even today, you're looking at all these documents. The public is entitled to see what you're looking at. So the ABO had to come in and say, you got to post everything, right? So we know. And it does. It causes an issue. Your notice, the public's notice, we just would have to punt that at least out 72 hours. Even if you called a special meeting in 2 days, you'd still have to meet the proper notice requirements.
Well, here's a ministerial question. So the posting is 72 hours and the registration comment is 72 hours. The board might want to consider allowing some number of hours after posting, so make it 60 or 48, so that the public could actually read the agenda. That's up to you.
Because should we note that the main way to have public comment is through the public hearing? Should that be the opening, right?
Yeah, we could.
The main way to communicate with this board is through the public hearing, which will be noticed, I don't know, however many hours in advance.
I think paragraph 1, comments should be limited to approval of IDA benefits to an applicant. Prior to applications being reviewed by the IDA, most projects must obtain planning board approval and in some cases town board approval. Both the planning board and the town board have public meetings where public comment is to be made with regard to approval of the project itself. So my attempt there was to say that's the proper, so what I'll do is I'll put in there, I mean, that's my whole, I'm torn over this because you're allowing public comment, but you also had your public hearing. So you're almost inviting people not to do the public hearing. And that's where the record is created.
The IDA public hearing. Well, I say it's only Georgette's just saying, you know, in addition, comma, the IDA shall.
May.
Well, I think we will have a public hearing when required.
Yeah, in addition, the IDA is required to.
You got 3 bites at the apple. You want to come talk to us after the process.
Right, and that's my
That's what
point
you're
is
saying,
we
yeah.
want you to go to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Because then the entire record of your board meeting becomes the record of comments on there's always a method to my madness, you know
Yeah,
that.
you wanna-
And, yeah. So in addition, the IDA is required to have public hearings on all projects.
It's not on all, it's only over $1 million worth of
No. 100,000, I think.
100,000, whatever it is.
Yeah, but in general, most of them are.
You generally required.
Just say may, we may be required to hold a public hearing.
You could underscore the point by creating 3 sub-bullets, naming those 3 public hearings. So I withdraw my suggestions about the board's ability to waive the pre-registration. Kate's making some very good points there. And I also, based on this, don't care one way or the other, whether it's 72 hours or fewer for that registration. I think that what she's pointing out here, the other choices that are created for public comment are quite sturdy.
Call the question. Joseph, so moved.
Second,
With the edits, right?
with the edits.
All in favor of approval of the public comment policy with the edits? Any abstained or approved? Abstained or opposed? All right, the motion passes to approve the public comment policy as Kate will amend it. If you want to circulate to proofread those amendments, please go ahead. 22nd day of March. All right, so I will turn this over to Kate to begin our first in-meeting brief education session on the proper use of executive session.
Sure. So this will be really quick because obviously we wrote up a quick memo for you just to take a look at. But one of the things I'm going to try to do is just touch on, 5 minutes when we have something interesting is sort of the hot topics for IDAs, and executive session is always one of those for pretty much many public authorities. Folks want to use executive session when you really shouldn't be. And I just wanted to make sure that you all at least have seen it once where it's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4 in the document. If we don't meet any of that requirement, we certainly can't go into executive session. I know some of you know that, some of you don't know that. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then, of course, when we do go into executive session, making sure the motion on the record reflects what we're adjourning to discuss. That's very important. The ABO just put out another opinion on that as well, what they would like to see for that. Or sorry, the Committee on Open Government, not the ABO. So I thought this was certainly something I just wanted to put in front of you and remind you of.
We, at the port, we actually have the agenda, and then we have in smaller text at the end of the agenda, all of this list, so that then it's a reminder to the board members that if it's not in that, we can't go into executive session. And then also if we do go into executive session, then we know it's this, and this, and it's on every agenda. And it's just really helpful to make sure we're not going in when we shouldn't, and that we're very clear about why we do. I don't know if that might be, it's very complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah. I know that has been helpful for us to make sure, and then we also are able to state why we're going to an executive session.
Most of this is governed by the interpretation, which is the Committee on Open Government. And there's several opinions. You would think some things might fall under that category that the Committee on Open Government has said it does not. So it's interesting, to take a look at those. And I try to stay up to date because those questions always come. Well, why can't we? It's X, Y, Z. Well, there's an opinion on that, and the Committee on Open Government says, that's not something that qualifies. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know we've had difficulty too getting some training on the calendar yet. So when I can, I'll just provide you with as much information too about things as I possibly can. And it was important to discuss that before we actually go into your first executive session. So.
I think that some form of this that you provided today can be added to the policy manual as we work through it during the course of this year.
You got it.
So before we go into executive session, because I know I need to recuse myself, I just want to Is the training not taking place at the end of this month? That's not the,
Yeah, we couldn't get it
okay.
scheduled.
And then, so then our next board meeting is April 26th.
Yes, released right now. I won't be in town for that, so we'll see.
Yeah, that one's a hard one for me too. Okay.
What is also true, I mean, we might want to reschedule April 26th so that we do meet in May is the next New York State Economic Development Council meeting. Starts at noon in Cooperstown. So we could squeeze in a very short meeting in May if we had to, but I don't want to use that time to have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting. So let's keep in touch about April. Okay, so it's my understanding that because the last item on the agenda is an executive session, Georgette, you're
Yes, I am.
excusing yourself. How can we work this so that she doesn't have to come back to adjourn the regular meeting?
She doesn't. You have a quorum that can.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Mhm.
thank you.
Good luck with your discussion. Yeah, I don't know if we need anything else.
Sorry about- All right. We have been asked to hold an executive session for the purpose of discussing, Kate, the official.
So we need a
Correct.
motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning to executive session?
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Okay, we will move into executive session as soon as staff who isn't Kate remove themselves. Thank you both for being here after the executive session. We'll adjourn the meeting and we don't have any other questions or business. Now, I have documents that you need from members. All right, at 9:56 a.m., we exited executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
No action was taken.
Oh,
just
no
for the
action
record.
was taken. A motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of adjourning the regular meeting?
Aye.
The regular meeting is adjourned at
9:56.
9:57, March 22nd. Thank you all for being here and for your patience.